throughout human history, we think of lawmakers and leaders as above the law or incapable of breaking laws. Sadly, you would be wrong. Sometimes the laws they create come back to haunt them or their entire society. But have you noticed the pattern? Every attempt at total control over humans always ends up failing. It's not because nobody has done it right, but because it's just not possible. And the more you try to control humans, the more we resist. You just can't. Today, we're going to be looking at cases when this paradox played itself out in our history, because recognizing this pattern teaches us something critical about power, human nature, and why even well-intentioned laws sometimes create the opposite effect of what they intended. Going back to the 1920s, the history lesson we were all taught in our US history class. At the time, America tried to ban alcohol entirely, and they did not make any type of exceptions or compromises. The intent was good: reduce crime, reduce drinking, reduce social problems. But here's what they didn't account for. When you try to completely control what people consume, you don't eliminate the desire, you just eliminate the safeguard. Crime started to skyrocket, not because alcohol existed, but because people still wanted it, but now there was no legal way to get it. Organized crime started to take over as they filled that void by being suppliers of alcohol. Corrupt politicians made fortunes, and even the agency created to enforce this law became so corrupt that its commissioner said the whole thing was just a fruitless exercise. They had created the opposite of what they intended. By trying to fully control alcohol and lower its users, by the end we had more people drinking than we had before the ban. This is the paradox we always see in situations like this. Control creates resistance, and it lets black markets rule. But what if we didn't fight this human nature? Could we work alongside it? Now let's go back even farther to 1882. America has just passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. And this time, the government wanted to control something that is also currently repeating itself in history. Immigration. The law was simple. Anyone who was Chinese were not allowed to immigrate. No exceptions, no loopholes, complete exclusion. But what the government always forgets is, just because you pass a law trying to control something, you can't control human nature. You can only make suggestions to it. Now let's go back even farther to 1882. America has just passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. And this time, the government wanted to control something that is also currently repeating itself in history: immigration. So these people didn't just move away or disappear. They still came, still needed work, still needed to survive. But what was the outcome? Their solution was to create an underground system. Fake documents, false identities, not because they were doing something harmful, but because their existence was made illegal. When this law was finally repealed in 1943, it was far too late. Thousands of Chinese Americans had already spent decades living under fake names, terrified of being deported if they came forward. The law created to originally exclude them actually created a secret society trapped in something they never asked for, and it gets worse. In 1956, the government created the Chinese Confession Program, cried a place for anybody considered illegal to confess, if they lied on their papers to enter and inform on others who did the same. In exchange, you'd earn legal citizenship. This created a moral dilemma: stay hidden or betray your own community. But what did this create? Desperation, dishonesty, distrust, an entire society having to live in fear. This paradox has now shown up twice in history. The more you try to fully control humans, the more resistance emerges. You can only push them to find a way. In 2001, after 9/11, America passed the Patriot Act. This time, the government wanted to control something new: information, total surveillance, watch everyone, catch terrorists before they can strike. The intention seemed good, the same logic as Prohibition. If we can see everything, we can prevent everything, right? Except it didn't work. The FBI later admitted something we wish wasn't true. They couldn't point to a single major terrorism event they actually stopped because of the Patriot Act. Not one. So that raises a question. What was the point? If it didn't stop terrorism, if it didn't make us safer, who was it really protecting? The answer: the government. As they spied on regular American people, gathered data on citizens who had done nothing wrong, built a system of total monitoring that didn't make us feel safer. It made us feel watched. And here's what constant surveillance actually creates: paranoia, distrust. A society where you're afraid to speak, afraid to organize, afraid to question. It erodes the very freedoms you claimed to protect. Less transparency, less accountability, less trust between citizens and the state. And so the paradox appears yet again. Total control creates the opposite of security. It creates fear.